Hi, everybody. It's Joe Chaffee here. It's a Monday night on this Veterans Day, the 12th of November, 2018, and hope everybody had a good day. It was a holiday to commemorate our veterans who have served and have helped to keep us as a free nation. So if you haven't taken a minute or two out of your day to commemorate that and to honor the veterans, this is as good a time as any to do so. So just remember those that you're in your family, and if not in your family, in other people's families. And this also being, the anniversary, the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I. Okay. Let's move on to weather tonight. It is a busy night indeed. We've got two weather systems that are headed up the East Coast. One that is coming up for tonight into tomorrow morning. That's going to produce about an inch of rain or so. Some places a little bit less. I kind of thought the range would be a good range. Would be about 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a quarter. Some places could get maybe a little bit more than that, up to an inch and a half. But it should be out of the eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England area, including Philadelphia and New York City. It'll be moving out tomorrow morning, right after the bulk of the morning rush hour is done in Philadelphia, and probably just after the morning rush hour is done in New York City. And then weather conditions will improve in the afternoon. We're going to bring in another shot of very cold air, and we're going to set the table up for yet another system moving up the East Coast for later Thursday night into Friday. If we were a month down the road in the calendar, if we have this set up a month from now, around December 15th, as opposed to November 14th, 15th, if it were December 14th and 15th, I guarantee you we'd be talking about widespread snows, if not on the coast, certainly just inland of the coast. We are dealing with an air mass where temperatures are going to be running a good 15 degrees below normal, but this time of year, that may not actually be enough, where your average high is sitting at about 55. So, you're talking about temperatures that'll be in the 30s. Still, it's a cold high that's building, cold air from eastern Canada that will be coming down on Wednesday. Many areas down here in downstate New York and in New Jersey and eastern PA are going to have a tough time getting out of the low 40s for daytime highs. And for this time of year, that is very cold. And in fact, Wednesday night, we're likely to see temperatures from the upper teens in the coldest spots to the upper 20s, even in the warmer urban locations. I was looking at some of the weather model guidance from late this afternoon, which has actually come in a little bit colder. And this is going to be a bit problematic, I think, more for elevated areas than for the lower lying areas and for coastal areas. I think elevated areas in northern New Jersey, northeastern Pennsylvania, the lower Hudson Valley, in Connecticut, north of Route 15, and then, of course, continuing on into upstate New York and into New England, will wind up with some snow out of this. And also, I think there'll be some snow down into the mountains of West Virginia and even in northwestern Virginia. Again, elevation driven is going to be the key here, but it's complicated. All these things are always complicated. I think the biggest factor is the high that's off in northern New England. If that high were to hold on, this would make for a really interesting scenario for later Thursday night. The high is going to eventually give way. It's a matter of whether it gives way quickly or does it give way slowly. So we're going to get to the maps in just a second. I just want to make a quick announcement. For those of you who are in the eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England area, you might like to download my app. If you have an Android device, it is not yet ready for iPhones, but if you have an Android device, you can download my weather app on Google Play. I will put a link up here on the chat board for you. It is absolutely free. I'm asking that you might consider joining the Patreon platform along with downloading the app. The Patreon platform is a $2 a month subscription, but it's not required. The app itself is free. So the download, I put the link up there on the chat board, so you can grab a hold of it and take a look. If the forecast that's on there is mine, I'm writing it. It's not generated by a computer. The icons are not generated by a computer. You get some of the stuff that's on my website. You're going to get on the app, but you're going to get it in a really clean, seamless, easy, downloadable way. You get notifications, and if you miss a video, you'll have the video will be on the app. So again, the app is free. Just consider that you might join the Patreon platform with it at tiers that start at $2 a month, unless you need it for professional reasons and you require some additional hand holding by me, in which case you can opt for some of the higher tiers. Okay, enough of that. We'll get to the weather tonight, which front and center, we always like to kind of do the severe weather part of it first. And you can see that we do have a small tornado warning left from an earlier larger tornado warning up for the Florida Panhandle, a small portion of southern Alabama, into a small portion of southwestern Georgia, and then out over the coastal waters as some heavy thunderstorm activity is moving through there. That's embedded inside an area of marginal risk. You also have slight risk being indicated for the Carolina coast for the overnight inside an area of marginal risk running from coastal South Carolina all the way to southeastern Virginia. And of course, the rains with this weather system that is moving up the East Coast beginning to advance northward. We have some advisories and warnings that are up tonight across the Northeast, and we'll take to those now as we look at the winter storm warnings that are posted for not much of, but at least part of southwestern Maine. And the numbers that you see on there are not the forecasted snow amounts. Don't get nervous. Those are the actual current 7 p.m. temperatures, which are all in the low and mid 20s up in Maine. We have winter storm warnings up for the counties in southwestern Maine, the northernmost counties of New Hampshire and Vermont. Then we have winter weather advisories around that in the, I guess that's purple. I'm not good when it comes to colors, but that extends westward into northeastern New York, and then down south and west of there into southwestern New York. And the only other area that we have advisories up from the standpoint of winter weather advisories, and I just wonder, yep, they're still up. There's a small area left in parts of, it looks like the southern half of Missouri, including St. Louis, still under a winter weather advisory there. And of course, we still have these huge problems out in the west in California with the wildfires that just continue. High wind watches and warnings up and down from Santa Barbara all the way down to San Diego to the Mexican border, and then going inland from there. There is really nothing that even remotely suggests that we're going to see rain into California through the rest of this work week, and probably through next weekend, the way the pattern has set up. It's very sad, but the rainy season usually gets underway sometime in the month of November, and it seems to be getting underway a bit late this year. Here's the surface map that we have right now. Low pressure is centered near Biloxi. You've got a warm front that runs just north of there, just inland of the coast to the North Carolina coast. So we have a bit of what we call a coastal front here, and this is often where you wind up seeing secondary lows develop. And that area that's in the tornado watch, being in the warm sector, is south of that warm front in that spot that we indicated over the Florida Panhandle into southwestern Georgia and southeastern Alabama. Cold air covers the plains all the way down into Texas. Temperatures in the teens right now. This map was drawn as of 5 o'clock, but temperatures in the teens across much of the plains. low 20s in the western lakes, and that cold air extends back down into the Rockies. So it's very chilly throughout much of the U.S. east from the Rockies eastward, and particularly up in the northern plains and the western Great Lakes, where we're near that upper trough axis that's driving all this cold air southward. The snow that is forecast, by the way, is on the order based on those advisories and the winter storm warnings. In the area where the winter storm warning is up, we're looking at probably a 4 to 8 inch snowfall forecasted by the Weather Service, with some locally higher amounts. While this is going to be elevation driven, it will probably be less so this time around because the air is colder, and that is also the case for upstate New York, where we're looking at 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inch amounts in some places, and again, elevation driven with regards to that 6 inch amount, for example. So, up in the Adirondacks, you're going to wind up with higher amounts of snow, and we're seeing some numbers also down along and on the west side of the Catskills, back up around Binghamton, forecasting about 3 inches, even into parts of northeastern Pennsylvania, maybe a coating to an inch or so, and across northern Pennsylvania, and then continuing down southwest of there, just north of Pittsburgh. You're looking at about a 1 to 3 inch snowfall as you head up toward north from Pittsburgh toward Erie, and then northeast from there toward Buffalo, and also seeing some basically light snows in and around northern Ohio overnight, in through parts of Michigan, and on the western part here of Michigan, the eastern shore, of Lake Michigan, which is in western Michigan, if you follow me. We're seeing some 1 to 4 inch amounts, and then you got a little bit of action, as always, on the UP, on the Upper Peninsula. You wind up getting spots that are always getting hammered with crazy amounts of snow. So there's a 10 being indicated there west of Sault Ste. Marie. So this is from, of course, this first system that is coming out now along the Gulf Coast is where you have that low, and you've got the upper air support that's also swinging around with this, the upper trough that is producing some additional snows, and you can see them here on the radar tonight. Meanwhile, the radar is loaded with rain, now just about getting ready to move into southern New Jersey, and also I'll give the radar a quick refresh. And no, just about now on to southern New Jersey there, northern Delaware, southeastern PA, raining in south central PA. We've got some heavy rains that are moving out into Chesapeake Bay and over into eastern Maryland, and some heavier rains also in southwestern Virginia down into interior North Carolina. Precip is starting to taper off in the western part of Virginia and into West Virginia. And in the colder air on the radar, you can see where there's some snow showing up in parts of southwestern New York, and also in northern Indiana, back to, looks like it's probably close to Chicago, might be seeing some flakes right now, and into southern Michigan. And then down on the Gulf Coast, here's where we're dealing with that tornado watch that's up, and there are some stronger cells on the radar right now in the Florida Panhandle, right where the watch still continues, and then some leftover showers as you go to the west. It is 7:43 p.m. Eastern Time, so if you're watching this on a replay, remember that these radars are dated, so you want to make sure you check for your latest radar by going to weather.gov. Nothing in the west, where you'd really wish that rain were there, and the Pacific Northwest also bone dry, as are the northern Rockies and in the northern plains. I just want to real quick, before we come back to our weather, let me just real quick get this out of the way, because you've got this system that's east of the Leeward Islands. It has not become better organized. In fact, the Hurricane Center has actually downgraded this tonight in terms of the probability of development. It was up at 80%, and now it is down to 60% in the next 5 days. And I have to tell you, models have grown increasingly less bullish on the development of this system. The GFS actually does carry it on its run. If you watch the loop carefully, you really can't see any kind of circulation there. There is a bit of an arc to it that where you're starting to see some serious outflow there, but we're not seeing any real concentration in the cloud cover. There's no so low-level circulation evident here. And I'm starting to wonder whether the European may have the right idea, which is that there will be no development of this system at all. By the way, really fast, just to come back now, we'll come back to this, and I'm going to bring up the weather models, and we're going to take a look at the system for tonight, and we're also going to take a look at the system for later Thursday and into Thursday night. So it's pretty cold up here in the Northeast, certainly for this time of year, to see temperatures in the upper 30s and lower 40s. By the way, even this system tonight, if we were a month down the road, I bet you we probably would be, if you want to just seasonally adjust for the numbers relative to normal, I'm sure we would be cold enough, probably seeing at least snow at the start. So the temperatures are probably just going to hold here or rise, and I don't expect anything to happen from the standpoint of frozen precipitation in the areas that are down in southeastern New York and in through southern New England and points southward, not from this particular system. All right, so I'm going to just now I'm going to bring up the GFS. We're going to take a look at the afternoon GFS run, and it was pretty interesting, I thought. The west, of course, being bone dry quiet. You can see there's nothing from the standpoint of precip going out to the west. So we'll just leave it at that, and I'll just come to the into the east, and we'll spend our time here. And let me just we'll get it a little bit bigger. Maps, of course, courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, which should be always your go-to website when it comes to looking at weather models, etc., etc. Okay, so our low is coming up from the Gulf states. We know that it was sitting there near Biloxi, Mobile, somewhere there this evening on the surface map. That rain pushes northward, overspreads the area up into southern New England by about midnight. There's some snow on the northern fringe of that, which of course eventually just shifts northward. By tomorrow morning, the low is just off the Delaware coast. If you're watching in eastern PA to southern New England, you might want to consider giving yourself some extra time for your Tuesday morning commute. Now, the rains are going to be ending from west to east tomorrow morning. This is actually showing measurable precip, but when you look at where the surface low is and you take a look at what the radar presentation is on the other models that show what the radar is supposed to look like, the rain is going to be over with, ending tomorrow morning from west to east, and by lunchtime it should be done, with the exception being up in eastern New England and points north and northward from there. The low winds up in the Gulf of Maine, rain over Nova Scotia. We've got some snow in northwestern New Brunswick and northern Maine as it goes by. And now the next cold air mass is coming in. The bottom part of this front just stalls out. And if you remember, we've been talking about the upper air and how the bottom part of the trough shears away from the northern energy, and the northern energy goes by. Well, that's at the surface. What happens is that the front, which is actually further to the east of the upper trough, winds up stalling out, and you start to get another wave that develops on it, and you can see it here pushing northward off the southeast coast. This is by Thursday morning, 1 a.m. Now, at that point, you've got a very strong high up in central New York State. This is how we get in the Northeast. This is how we oftentimes get very, very cold at the low levels of the atmosphere. You've got cold air that is basically draining down from southeastern Canada straight down the Hudson Valley on a north-northwest wind. And this is where you see temperatures that can sometimes really fool you, and guidance doesn't always handle it well. But I would not all be surprised to see temperatures down in the upper 20s in the warmer urban areas Thursday morning, and upper teens and low 20s just about everywhere else. This is going to be a very cold night setting up for Wednesday night into Thursday morning, and that cold air is actually draining all the way down into interior Virginia, where you do see some sleet being indicated by the GFS at this point. And of course, you also have some snow on the far western side in western Tennessee. By morning, the high is up in northern Vermont, New Hampshire. You start to push precip up into southern New Jersey. And this is, again, a month from now in a situation like this, this would be at least starting off where it snows for a number of hours. But because of the time of year, we're just kind of struggling with the amount of cold air that we have. That is, if you're a snow lover. But you might get fooled a little bit here. And I think what may wind up happening is in elevated areas, it's certainly not unreasonable that for elevated areas in northwestern New Jersey, for example, in northeastern PA, and maybe even in some non-elevated areas in northeastern PA, and it points northward, I think here you could wind up seeing snow and sleet that accumulates. And in fact, I wouldn't be at all shocked to see wet snowflakes and sleet mixing in even down along the coast with this. The surface low, at least according to the world of the GFS, actually tracks out east-northeast. If this high were able to hold on and hold in place there, you would definitely be talking about more of a snow situation, obviously. But the high is forecast by all the models to give way. We don't really have truly strong blocking in the Atlantic in order to hold that high in place. So then the low pulls out to the northeast, and then we have another cold air mass that comes in for the weekend. By the way, this looks like it's going to be the last one in this series of systems that we've been dealing with since the middle part of October. So at the very least, it looks like the pattern is going to be relaxing a little bit for Thanksgiving week, thankfully, and that'll make traveling easier because we know it's a big travel week. But also, it doesn't look like we're going to have any big precip events next week as I snuck around in the long range. Now, here's how the upper air is shaping up. So you've got, that's our trough that went through here over the weekend. And now, of course, we're getting this cold air that's coming in. Here's that northern trough that's bringing up the low up the coast for Tuesday, Monday night, Tuesday, tonight into Tuesday. Again, this was supposed to be a full latitude trough going all the way down into North Florida. The ridge off the southeast coast, the ridge that's east of the Bahamas, south of Bermuda, much stronger than modeled many days ago. The western part of that trough shears off and cuts off, and then that starts to lift northeastward because you have another strong short wave coming down into the northern plains. And actually, I think one of the reasons why you're seeing perhaps a colder profile of the models is that this upper feature is more vigorous. You're going to have some dynamic cooling going on here because of the upper low and the track that the upper low is taking. So that could wind up surprising some places in terms of the kind of wet snow, the accumulation that you'll see, especially in elevated areas. So I want to be I'm going to want to be very cautious about watching this upper low and how it holds together as it moves along to the northeast. Then it lifts out. We get another trough that comes in, and this is, basically going to keep things cold into the first couple of days of next week, and actually right in through Wednesday. I suspect temperatures are going to be on the chilly side. Maybe we'll be up close to normal, but I don't think we're going to be beyond that. In fact, you can see the flow here all of next week is pretty much to the northwest, so that at the very least that keeps things on the dry side. All right, in terms of total precip, I'm going to break it down with regards to 24-hour precip so that we can actually look at the systems separately. So the first system in the next 24 hours, this is the precip profile. The heaviest rains, North Carolina, southeastern Virginia, and offshore. You do have a stripe of what looks like about 1.5 inches to maybe some pockets of 2 inches from northeastern New Jersey on through southeastern New England. And then with the second system, you've got another stripe. Again, these are 24-hour rainfall amounts, so you have to look at the ending period. So this is by Friday morning. So you're talking about another round of a couple of inches of melted liquid precipitation. And now with respect to snow, I think the GFS, the European model today, depending on which one you use. I didn't take a look at weather.us, which is a pretty good website to use if you want to see some European snow maps. I'm not sure, how they come about to the parameters that they have with respect to the snow numbers, because they are listed as fractionally. So I've often wondered whether that's just if that needs to be corrected or not, but I'm not sure. So we'll look at the total accumulated snow forecast, and let's get a time frame on this. Okay, so we want to go to, we can actually just take it till the end of the 10-day period, because it really doesn't matter. And actually, if you look at the European here, actually showing, now I've seen algorithms here that show that a lot of this area winds up with 3 inches plus. When dealing with the kind of situation we are dealing with at this time of year, these numbers all translate to under an inch. In the yellows, you start to get into the 1.5 to 2 inches. So we're talking about under an inch of liquid here throughout this area. I'll get a little tighter here on the east so you can see how the snow profiles down into the mountains of northeastern West Virginia, northwestern Virginia, and then a good chunk of PA and throughout upstate New York. But even the European, which was colder than its prior run, but not quite as cold as the GFS, is showing some frozen precip mixing in at the coastline, and I would put it in there. I've actually mentioned in my own forecasts tonight that we could see some mixing at least along the coast, and maybe some accumulation in the elevated areas inland. I'm going to use the positive snow growth map because that is supposed to account for sleet and account for melting here. And actually, this again is 24. This is the 24-hour snowfall. So if you look at the numbers from the positive snow growth map ending Friday morning at 7 a.m., this kind of makes sense to me. Streaky 4-inch plus amounts in some of the higher elevations back through PA. The positive snow growth map is actually indicating maybe an inch or two in southeastern PA and in northwest New Jersey. Again, also maybe some elevation-driven snows there and on up into the Hudson Valley. So at least it implies that there might be some mixing and some wet snow getting in there along the coast. Wouldn't shock me. The bottom part, the cold air is going to be shallow, but it's going to be cold. And this, it wouldn't shock me. Maybe much of this, maybe a good chunk of this of what you see down at the coast could be sleet. That I don't think that's unreasonable. And you're talking about temperatures that during the day on Thursday are going to be in the 30s. It's going to be really tough, except right along the immediate coast, to get those temperatures to get back up to the 40-degree mark. So, I'm still kind of observing. This is, as I've said a few times already, this is the first one of the season. So I'm kind of nervous about it because it is the first one of the season, and I'm trying to kind of get into mode and also into forecasting mode for snow, and it's a different mindset than it is in the summertime when you're forecasting rain and thunderstorms. And by the way, I've already been hearing, people are throwing up. That's why I didn't really show the 10-to-1 ratio maps, because if I did, you probably have already seen them on social media. So, they're showing, some of them are showing some pretty outrageous amounts up there, but I think it's grossly unrealistic to go by those. And we still have a lot of time to figure out where this is going to wind up. And the favorite areas, certainly, I would say, northeastern PA, northwest New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, particularly as you go north of 84, in Connecticut, north of Route 15, and points northward. But I'm thinking that you'll probably see at least some mixing down at the coast. If we see the models keep trending a little bit colder, then it might cinch the idea of it mixing in down in coastal areas. Okay, so you guys want me to look at all these renegade models, so I'm going to do that. Okay, because we do have time. So you want me to look at the parallel GFS. Okay, I'm just going to warn everybody because, we're going to, when you're dealing with these weather models, okay, if you look hard enough, you're going to always find a model that's going to probably predict a snowstorm, okay, and most of the time, the vast majority of the time, it's not going to happen. So just bear that in mind. But I see that you want me to look at the parallel GFS, the FV3-GFS. And why not? And of course, this one yesterday did show it cold and snowy everywhere. It actually is warmer than yesterday's run. But I think it might be an error here of holding on to this high way too long and way too far to the north and west. It's got a wrapped up gale there southeast of Long Island. I mean, look, if this is right, you certainly are going to see big snows across Massachusetts and through upstate New York, especially along I-90, if that's correct, and eventually, kind of wraps around into northeast PA. I'm sure when I pull up the snow map, I'm going to see something crazy. So here's the 10-to-1. Yeah, I figured. Okay, you know what? You can't forecast this. You cannot forecast something like this, okay? And does he has the positive snow growth on this one? No. But look, I mean, you're talking about something that happens maybe once every 50 years. You're going to stand here 3 days in advance and forecast numbers like this? You can't do that. It's nuts. All right. Even on the outside long shot chance that this wound up being right, I'd still stand by what I'm saying now. I would never go out and forecast something like this, given the parameters of what we're seeing with the standard operational model runs, and also knowing what CLIMO is. The ICON model, by the way, just the German model, which I looked at earlier, why is it that why would the parallel GFS model be right as opposed to the ICON model, which takes the low straight northward inland of the New Jersey coast and on up in interior Connecticut? I mean, if this were right, yeah, you'd probably see some mixing and maybe some wet snow in there. But at the end of the day, it would be just a rain and wind event and no big deal. And whatever bigger snows you'd have would be in places you would probably expect to see them, up in upstate New York and in through parts of Vermont and New Hampshire and into Maine. So, my point is, why would the parallel GFS model run be correct? I think personally, I think it's wrong with the high. I think that, the high is going to move out because you don't have a good blocking signature in order to keep the high in place. Let's just bring this up. We'll go wide, okay? We'll go to the GFS. We'll go to the upper air 500, okay? Now, the only thing that holds that high in place, you see that big gigantic blue spot in the upper right? That is a big Atlantic Ocean storm, okay? Which the GFS does start to move and take it to the northeast. If that were to slow down and maybe, slow to a crawl and keep more of a ridge into southeastern Canada and hold that high in place, then you'd be in business. But I don't see any indication on any of the models, including the European, by the way. If we look at the European, the European's got the same idea. That upper low, does slow down a little bit, but it still carries away to the northeast. It doesn't hold that ridge in southeastern Canada. It holds it for a short period of time, but not long enough. You do have a very vigorous upper low with some fairly strong dynamics, so that you could have, as I said earlier, you'll have some dynamic cooling going on, particularly in the elevated areas. But again, you can't wish cast your way to a snowstorm. You gotta have your pieces there, and you got your puzzle pieces there, And while you do have some of them on board that say that, you know what, you got to watch this, the important pieces, and that is the cold air is marginal because of the time of year we're in. So, try not to get too wrapped up. I know, for snow lovers, I know this is like, really exciting, particularly because it is the 12th of November. And by the way, I was trying to remember this, and somebody reminded me, and it was back on Veterans Day in 1987, and I believe that in and around New York City we had like a coating to an inch or so in some places, but down in the Washington, D.C. area, in what wound up being kind of a freak snow event where the snow just basically sat over the D.C. area, and they picked up over 11 inches. It was a very, very rare event indeed, and that was on Veterans Day in 1987. So, look, a freak event, it's happened before, and it can happen. All right, I'm going to come to the chat board, but I'm going to just, for those of you who came on late, I can take this opportunity to just bring this up again. My new app is out, and it's free. It is on... it's focused mainly for the northern half of New Jersey, New York City, the lower Hudson Valley, southern Connecticut, and Long Island. I prepare posts and forecasts for those areas, although occasionally I do venture out to other things. But in terms of the forecast that's available on there, it is for my local area. The app is free. It is only available right now for you Android users. I do not have the Apple version is not ready yet. So if you are on an Android and you are in my geographic area, here is the link. I'm going to put it up on the chat board for you, and you can download it and take a look at it. I would appreciate your opinions, because we're still going to be doing a lot of tweaking with this in the next couple of weeks, and hopefully in the next week or so we'll have the Apple version will be approved and we'll have it out. So if you go to Google Play, you can either go via the link or just go to Google Play and put in there meteorologist Joe Chaffee and download the app. It's absolutely free. The only thing I would ask, and I'm only asking, it's not required, is you consider joining the Patreon platform, and the subscription for that is $2 a month, and you'll get not only you're getting the app, but you're going to be getting a ton of other posts, plus exclusive live videos that I do just for Patreon members. We did one yesterday morning, and we also did one this morning, and hopefully I will wake up after a good night's sleep, and I'm sure we are going to do one tomorrow morning when the new NAM comes out. So for those of you who would like to also get on the Patreon platform, I've just put the link up to that. And thank you very much for your consideration. It does go a long way. Helps me pay a few bills, get a couple of cigars. Believe me, I'm not getting rich by all this stuff, okay? Just like everybody else, I got to pay my bills and eat and support my family. So I again appreciate any the app. And Robbie, you got my coffee? Oh, Jen, got my. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I needed this desperately.
You can tell you're losing steam.
I'm working in a freezing studio here. Okay, so let's. Jakey Snakey, for the storm on Thursday, will there enough be a cold air in place in Dayton, Ohio for some snow? Oh boy, that's a good question. Let me, I'll give it a quick look. I don't always pay attention to every geographic spot that's out there, but let's give it a quick look and see. And actually, the models do show some snow falling back through Ohio on the west side. You have to watch that upper low. That upper trough is pretty vigorous, and it's going to come close to you. And those types of situations like that, if you get underneath the upper low, under certain circumstances, you could wind up with a bit of a surprise. I'm not forecasting that, but just want to kind of make you alert, make you aware of that possibility. So I think there's a chance. Ryan Kane, I said no snow for Baltimore last night. Have I changed my mind? I'm going to probably continue to say no snow for Baltimore. God, boy, that might be close, but let me just see. I kind of think... Oh, let's see. Well, I mean, you know what? When at the initial start of precip, if it gets in fast enough, you might have some mixing at the start, or certainly north and west of Baltimore. I think you might have some sleet mixed in at the start. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll have to give it a closer look, though. Scott Reese, why are the operational models usually more bullish and less accurate than the other runs? I don't know that they are, Scott. Sometimes the operational models. All right, I'm just when you say the operational versus the what though? Are you comparing it to the? Are you asking me about the 0 and 12Z versus the 6 and 18Z, or are you asking me about the operational model versus the parallel? Because that's two different things. So if you could clarify your question, that would be great. Upper Hudson Valley, asked Michael Beckley. Well, you're going to get some from this system for tonight and tomorrow, especially if you're north of I-90 up in the Adirondacks. As far as the second one is concerned, I would think that you would probably do fairly well with that for this time of year anyway. You know what? 6+ as an early guess. Remember, it's Monday. Okay, we're talking about something that's Thursday night and Friday. So if you think I'm going to guess the snow amounts, or anybody's going to guess the snow amounts this early, it ain't happening. But for you up that way from the second system, 6+, certainly not out of the question. Let's see, just running back through everybody's posts here. I was at the newsstand in 1898. Thanks, John Trabacchino. I really appreciate it. I haven't heard anything yet, Israel, from Lakewood. Okay, they're closed today anyway. Let's see, James Vitale. I know there's no snow in the forecast for me, but it's really cold here in Ocean County. Oh my God! James, in Toms River, it often amazes me. I don't know where that thermometer is, but it must be nailed to the side of a pine tree in the woods someplace, because sometimes the temperatures there can get really off the wall. And yeah, I think, if it comes in fast enough, if we've got some really low dew points in the morning, and that precip comes in fast enough with a little bit of intensity, you get a little bit of cooling it's a little bit of a dynamic cooling. You might wind up seeing some sleet or maybe even a few wet snowflakes in the mix. It wouldn't surprise me. Jason Nappy, nice to see you. Love you too, pal. And by the way, Jason, go ahead and put up your the link to your stuff, okay, on the chat if you want. Jason is down in Georgia, and he's going to become Georgia's version of what I'm doing with websites, YouTube, live casts, and everything else. So you go ahead and you put a link to your stuff on the chat, young man, and always a pleasure to be here. And I'll message you in a little bit because I saw what you were doing, and I think it's great. By the way, we need more folks like you to do this, because that's where the future is going to be. Is going to be on platforms like this one. Okay, I'm making you blush, Jason. Go on, stop it. Okay, Ryan Ford, do I think this can turn into all snow event for Jersey? Ryan, no. And you know what? You can't really Here's the thing. That's a question in a situation like this where we're this early in the game. The answer's no, right, at the moment. And the answer's going to be no probably on Thursday. But my point is that this is where, you just kind of, you deal with what's in front of you right now to give the answer. And based on the facts that you have in front of you right now, you would answer no to that question. Now, you might ask me that question tomorrow or on Wednesday or even Thursday morning, and I may give you a different answer. Jason, Miss you too, pal. Oh, stop it. You're doing fine. Really, seriously, put up a link to some of your stuff and message me. I can just find it, but I'll put it up on my Facebook page for you. Yeah, I did, and I still do. Okay, it's all good. I take a lot of joy in knowing that there are a few people out there that I helped get their dream come through. Weatherpassion.net. Okay, so http://weatherpassion.net. Okay, so there's his link, so you guys can take a look at his stuff. And Jason's got a YouTube channel too, so you could go over there and watch him, especially if you're in the Southeast. So anyway, thanks. I'm glad you're here. That's really so cool. I'm really, really glad you're here. Okay, so let's see. It's coming up on 1:15. So I think we're going to put an end to this here at this point. I have the Joe and Joe show tonight. Joe Rayo will be with me tonight on my Facebook page, meteorologist Joe Chaffee. That's at 9:15 Eastern Time. Then tomorrow morning, Patreon members, you will get your exclusive Patreon-only live stream. So look for the link to that tomorrow morning. Make sure you check your messages and check your notifications. Those of you who download the app that have Android devices, you'll get notifications when I update on there. And again, there are going to be some changes coming to that. We rolled it out. I wanted it out now with this first snow event coming, just to get some folks on board and getting used to it. And if you do download the app, the only thing I do ask that you consider just throwing $2 a month in on the Patreon platform and becoming part of that. Because actually, if you've got the app and then you got the Patreon platform where I'm doing a ton of exclusive stuff, and you put the stuff together, you've got a really, really cool, fun weather experience. And by the way, you can message me there, and I will answer you in a timely fashion. All right, that's it. So have a great evening, everybody. Oh, God. You're drawing a halo around my head, Mr. Nappy. Stop it. Okay? Have a great evening. I'll talk to you. I'll call you. I'll try and give you a call. Have a great evening, everybody, and we will see you we'll either see you later or we'll see you tomorrow.